Greetings YouTube, greetings everyone, and welcome back to Doctor Who Fridays. Please welcome my regular guests, CoquiPirate.
Howdy ho.
And Ujames1978.
Hello there, this is James Escott, Ujames1978.
I forget who you are sometimes. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes.
Always good to have that clarification.
Indeed.
Yes. So, we have been watching, and it's quite an achievement, I think, when you feel as good as Daleks Master Plan is, when you've made it through all 12 episodes, and some people count Mission to the Unknown, so some people call it a 13-parter. Interestingly, it was, what was it, Jed? We watched a documentary. It was like somebody's mother-in-law said, you Daleks on air more. So they thought, I know, we'll take this 6-parter and make it a 12-parter. And yeah, and obviously there is the, I guess, infamous middle bit, but I think that should maybe be its own topic. And yes, Dalek Master Plan, I kind of think if it all existed live action, you know, new bits have been turning up over the years, I'd kind of be inclined to say, couldn't it be cut together as a movie with Mission to the Unknown as a pre-title sequence, somewhat tightened, obviously, and then edit together the rest, leaving out the curious detour, but never mind that now. CoquiPirate, I think would this be the 5th ever Dalek story? Is it the 4th? No, it's the 4th.
The 4th, so okay. Yeah, thanks for counting for me, because I wouldn't have remembered. I guess part of it is because, I wanted to, get as much as I could out of one sitting each time. It's like, damn it, attention span. But I thought it was really well done. Okay. There's, I like the whole sort of descent within the enemies. It'd be nice if we see that within the Allies, but, obviously the main character is always good and true and would never betray one another. But I still like to see it among the enemies. I like the ways the story progressed. I wasn't even bothered by the middle bits, really. I thought, like every serial, I wonder, why don't they just leave? So it was nice to see them actually just leave, even if they, ended up coming back later. And that guy's name, something Chen, what was it?
Mavic Chen.
Mavic Chen, the whole idea of guardian of the solar system. It certainly is kind of cool. It seems like an almost deity-like figure. I'm thinking about Kami from Dragon Ball Z, the guardian of the Earth. But obviously this guy was not really a good guy, so, but he wasn't presented as human. Did they explain, like, did I miss it or something?
I'm sure Mavic Chen is meant to be human.
I always felt, because it's black and white, that his skin was somewhat green almost. So yes, I did agree with you. I would agree with you that he wasn't presented as human, and I took it as kind of like in Star Trek that yes, there are other species in the galaxy. Some of them just happen to inhabit the solar system, and full equal opportunities, no discrimination. Yes, someone who is an immigrant to the solar system, whose family was an immigrant to the solar system, he can still rise to the highest position of political authority in the solar system, and then turn around and betray the solar system to the Daleks.
I always thought because he's called Mavic Chen and because he's got eye makeup and stuff, that he was meant to be a Chinese in that sort of Ming the Merciless, stereotypical Chinese villain kind of way, hence the beard, the fingernails,
yes, but that was the point I was going to raise, that Alex did point out, we must talk about Mavic Chen's makeup. This is going to be a separate topic, I do believe. But why? The fact that he's green? No, the fact that he's Chinese. Oh! Oh, I see where you're coming from now.
Even holds the pen in a Chinese way.
Yeah, similar to an Oriental fashion. Similar kind of way to the way that an Oriental brush is held when doing calligraphy.
Okay.
But yes,
So,
that's going to be its own topic, methinks.
Yeah. So on the whole, then, you thought this was a good serial? Would you say it was the best Dalek story so far, Cokie?
Dalek story, definitely, yeah. I feel like I should watch it again, and take more time to, like, notice the little things. But yeah, I really liked it. And yeah, I generally didn't like Dalek serials, so, this definitely tops them.
Wow, well that's just as well, given the length of it. But yeah, it's a big epic sci-fi thing that you can see why it wasn't easy for them to get into production. Found some lovely photos recently, actually looking around for pictures for the Facebook page, and they did go all out. Because like normally, very rarely you'll see Verity Lambert, who was still producer. I was wrong, she is still producer at this point. But she did quite a few on-set pictures with all these monsters and things. So they were going all out to promote this. James, obviously I already know your thoughts and feelings generally about the serial, but for the audience at home, what did you tell us what you think of this serial?
In spite of the massive production problems, the fact that it was stretched out into a 12-parter when a 6-parter would have been so much more concise, we can discuss things like the addition of the meddling monk and the whole thing with the Egyptians, etc., at another in another segment of this podcast as a separate topic. In spite of the fact that Maureen O'Brien left 4 episodes too early, so it was Katerina who had to be written in again. A similar, we'll save that for a separate topic. In spite of the fact that they just had to put a Christmas episode in out of nowhere, and whilst the New Year's episode did advance the story somewhat, it was still kind of WTF. Get on with it. In spite of all of the flaws, even in spite of the fact that part of it is reconstructed, I would select this as the standout Hartnell story. Oh, even over and above things like the Aztecs and Marco Polo, which, again, I absolutely adore. If I was to... this is what we were discussing the other night, Alex. If we were to select one story from each classic Doctor's era to show to someone who had never seen or even heard of Doctor Who before, I would show Daleks Master Plan. Of course, as I say, it would be preferable if it was if it still existed in full, but in general, I would agree that it is by far the best Dalek story to date. Possibly the greatest Dalek story of all time, again, in spite of the fact that it was lengthened, in spite of all of the other problems. Because whilst the Dalek occupation of Earth, calling it an invasion, false advertising there, the Advertising Standards Agency should have come down on them, but whilst that was a great Nazi occupation story, which just happened to have some sci-fi elements in it, this was a great science fiction story with real, genuine, relatable characters, and wonderful political intrigue. The fact that the Guardian of the Galaxy turned out to be the villain, aside from the flaws which I've already alluded to, this was at its core a fundamentally wonderful story. Some of Terry Nation's greatest writing by far. And as I always say, a great story can make up for almost anything, and in this case, it certainly did.
Uh-huh. And yes, and I'm glad that tonally, I suppose it's the next season on from The Chase, where The Chase was just... in between Dalek Occupation of Earth and this, you had this Daleks in an exciting romp, a farce through time and space. We have this, which in some ways is similar to The Chase, because it goes to different eras and different planets. And I suppose they are being pursued, but they're being pursued for a specific reason. I did like, obviously, the Doctor stealing the Terranium core, that whole thing. So yeah, I'll agree. It's definitely. I mean, obviously, I'd like for all the missing ones to be found, even Galaxy 4. Yes, even the ones we're only watching for completism or completism. I always get those confused. So yeah, I'll agree. This was pretty good. Before we move on to another segment, is there anything else you'd like to add, Cokie?
I guess I just found it hilarious that I think this was the Christmas episode, that the movie within the show seems to get more takes than the show itself. At least I noticed quite a couple of instances with the Doctor, saying the wrong words, like, oh, I meant it, and it's just like, oh, wow. But yeah, the budget.
Yeah, he definitely, we call them Billy Fluffs in fandom. He did make quite a few mistakes, and I think what me and James discussed was when he's trying to explain, James, when it came to the sun of that planet and the ring, what did he say versus what he should have said?
He said, the sun in this galaxy has special powers which I reflect through this ring. No. The sun in this solar system, in this star system, has specific attributes which I can refract through my ring.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he got every aspect of that little monologue wrong.
To be fair, the scripts for those episodes were written an hour beforehand on the back of a chocolate wrapper.
Yes, and again, you can tell the you can literally spot the filler material in the Daleks Master Plan by reading the words "based on an idea" by Terry Nation, and then, as the short documentary at the beginning of the playlist points out. It was originally a 6-parter, Terry Nation's best, tightest, most totally perfect writing, but then the mother-in-law of the Director General of the BBC said, oh, but you should have more Daleks because they're popular at the moment. We should have things to entertain the kiddies. Moffat, rattle the jar.
It would have helped if Terry Nation hadn't been working on another TV show at the time.
Exactly.
So,
if Terry Nation had been,
sorry, I was late.
Yeah, a bit belated, but still.
Well spotted.
But if Terry Nation had been there to write the filler episodes, it would have been better. But even so, you write your magnum opus and then someone says, oh, sorry, you've got to write another 13 pages.
Yeah.
There is no middle finger big enough.
I always thought there should have been more of the Sistine Chapel. I think he was a bit of a shirker, really.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Something else that really stands out about this this serial, I kind of want to call this this segment Death, Death, and Death Again. Because apart from anything else, and actually, Cokie, well done, because last week you predicted that Katerina would not be around for much longer. Actually, I would say, if you count her as a companion, that was the first like really major character to sacrifice themselves. And I certainly do consider it a bona fide sacrifice. But yeah, Dalek Master Plan, it's like they really went all out here. It's like because up until this point, you've got good companion senses. You know, here it's like, here's a new character, oh, they're dead. Here's a new character, oh, they're dead. Here's a new character, oh, they're dead. And I do think, and apart from obviously Brett Vian, and then I would actually say Sarah Kingdom, who by my interpretation hadn't really got over the guilt of killing her own brother, and it's almost a mercy that it's over for her. And the death of Mavic Chen, I think, is wonderfully tense. I'd love to see proper live action. You know, the Daleks just stand there, Mavic Chen being the fool who thought you could do deals with Daleks. Koki, what are your thoughts on all the death toll of this episode, or the deaths in this episode, or serial?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I did call it. I guess, my reasoning again is that she was a historical companion. My reasoning was that she could either be written well or written terribly, but the fact that I've never heard anything about her can only mean that she dies soon. Which, that was pretty spot on. She died early in that serial, too.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. It would have been nice to see, how they would have... well, maybe it's because of the difficulty with that they decided to kill her off. I liked the whole killing her brother thing. I guess, I'm not sure. Do I shake them off the jar if it's a good thing? But I guess, because I recently saw Into the Dalek, and it sort of goes into the whole thing about being a soldier, which I guess is a bit more relevant to my time than being the Nazis, because living with soldiers, it's something that makes some people uneasy. And, the fact that Sarah just took orders and did what she had to do without thinking, it was... in light of that, it just made me think of, the difference between human and Dalek, and how humans can become like Daleks. But the Daleks are more... Would it be right to call them more tools than agents, if that makes sense?
Oh, yeah.
But they're tools without a purpose, without a guiding principle, so they just do what they do. But yeah, and, the death at the end was, like you said, it was really tense and something I would have loved to see in, live action.
Yeah. I'd like to see how they did the aging to death effect as well, live action. I don't know how much of the recon of this was kind of improvised. It is a great ending. This serial, it's long, but it pays off. And then the Daleks themselves, obviously, because you're reminded they actually are these creatures. I think this serial is the first time where the Doctor explicitly says anything like, we're done with the Daleks once and for all. Which I always think is, don't tempt fate. You know what happens when you say things like, I think I know what meme is going to be appearing on the screen as I say that. Yes. And actually, slight digression, because you did, Moffat Jar, you did raise actually, Into the Dalek is co-written by Phil Ford. I think there's additional material by Moffat, but it's a Moffat season. Did you spot something the Doctor said which is more significant now that you've seen most of the Hartnell era? That I can't remember the exact line, but the Doctor, when talking to his patients, the quote-unquote good Dalek or defective Dalek or whatever, something like, I wasn't a hero, the Doctor was just a name for me then. But then I went to Skaro and I met you, and then I knew who I was. Not, the Doctor isn't a Dalek. And that sort of explaining retrospectively why the Doctor had been this guy who would happily murder a caveman, wasn't that nice to people, and his first encounter, it does feel like his first encounter with the Daleks is what makes him realise he should be a hero, but he's still quite a flawed person, because what does it mean to be the Doctor? The Doctor is not a Dalek. I know who I am because I'm not a Dalek. I have an antithesis, which is kind of... But anyway, I like those sorts of new series references to these things. I dread to think what James's opinion would be, but I'm going to go back on topic. Because James...
I was just going to say that, that is really interesting, because I was actually going to poke fun at the Doctor later for his apparent hypocrisy, saying, that's not how we do things, and, the Doctor... He seemed to have gone through a character shift, but, the idea that, even though this is after the fact, the idea that the Daleks are what changed him is an interesting one.
Yeah. I'd say also, and most people's interpretation was that it's through humans that he gains humanity, but I think it could be a bit of both. Obviously, by the time you get to Moffat Jar into the Dalek, I think that they reference, I think it's to do with the Time War. The Doctor is still ashamed of himself during the Time War. That's what he is, because he's an ex-soldier. He doesn't want to be with soldiers. But that's enough new serious stuff. James.
Yeah, how hard do I need to shake this now? There we go.
Oh dear, that's See, I don't need to pour a bucket of ice water over my head. I've just raised so much. James, one of your favourite topics, death.
Indeed, this is the ultimate Hugh James serial. One of the first things we see is the wounded man knowing he is done for, knowing he is just going to slow Brett Vian down, pointing his weapon at his superior, "Get out of here now or I will kill you." Because Brett is trying to be the hero, never leaving a man behind. But as he said before he raised his weapon, if you go alone, you've got a chance. It's not a good chance, but it's a chance. And then after threatening to kill him, good luck. Yes.
Yeah.
What do you say to a man who's sacrificing himself for the slim, infinitesimal hope that you might survive and save the world? You just say nothing and walk away. And then trying to stand up on his broken, injured leg. Come on, then! It's just so intense, so powerful, so beautifully done. If you're going to be a bit part character in an episode of a science fiction program, you want something with that kind of weight and gravitas. Of course, the serial is so long that unfortunately we've almost forgotten him by the conclusion, on top of which there's so much other death. But that's a part of it, Moffat Jar. When characters die, this is one of the defining points about the Hartnell...
Sorry, muted.
Yeah. This is one of the defining points about the Hartnell era as opposed to any other era of Doctor Who, from the sacrifice/suicide of the Thal in the original Dalek story to Dortmund in the Dalek Invasion of Earth, and now in the Daleks Master Plan. People die, and they're not necessarily heroes. They're not necessarily even remembered. Teaching children, death happens. Deal with it. it's not a great heroic thing that never happens to good people or can be magically undone because the character is too popular. So,
Oh.
Interesting cough there. Nice try, James. You tried to sneak that in.
But yes. Moving on though to the sacrifice of Katerina. The point being that she could have had absolutely no idea what an airlock was, so why was she reaching for that one particular control? As I indicated, trying not to spoil for Coqui in the last podcast, it is my sincere conviction that Galaxy 4 was either thrown together at the last minute or wasn't meant to be filmed and broadcast until after the Mythmakers and Daleks Master Plan. Daleks Master Plan was supposed to be a 6-parter. So, excuse me. So I believe it should have started with the Mythmakers. Vicky, instead of living happily ever after with Troyes, goes back into the TARDIS, and Troyes is on the planes screaming "Cressida" because he believes that he's now been wounded and is bleeding to death after fighting with Achilles, and he dies believing that Cressida, Vicky, betrayed him. So, of course, on the TARDIS, Vicky would have been suicidally distraught because she left the man she loved behind to die, to which, having been taken hostage by Kirkson, the name of the prisoner with the knife, going into the airlock, knowing that the Doctor, Stephen and Brett have to get to Earth, not wanting to be held hostage, not wanting to go back to Kemble, and also, as I say, feeling suicidal over leaving the man she loved behind to die, does reach for the control. Now, that Katerina's death is probably the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest scene in Doctor Who history, the most powerful, the most profound, the most deeply moving, and the Doctor's speech afterwards, I will never forget her. Because, again, it's such a meaning. On the one hand, it's such a meaningless act, such a futile act, such a self-destructive act. But at the same time, she saved everyone and the solar system as a whole. If Vicky had been the woman in that airlock, yeah, you've known her for a year. You thought she was going to live happily ever after, but no, she's dead. That you can see why it says in the documentary at the beginning of the playlist on Daily Motion that no other country would buy or show the Dalek Master Plan because it was too violent, because there was so much death. The British in the 1960s must have been made of sterner stuff.
It makes you proud to be British. But yes, Australia bought Dalek Master Plan, minus the weird middle episodes, but didn't broadcast the serial, and didn't syndicate anywhere else. So yes, this was TV that was only made by the,
This is the joke about my new book, which I put on the back cover. If this was a TV series, only 12 people would watch it, and it would be on BBC4 after midnight. Next, of course, following the profound but somewhat futile death of Katerina / Vicky, if only the scheduling and production problems hadn't existed, comes the death of Brett Vian, another tragic waste, as the Doctor describes it at the end of the serial. A terrible waste. because having come back to Earth and met a man who they thought they could trust. So, what do you have the Terranium? How did you know that it was Terranium? Brett shoots him. You idiots! How can we question him now?
You'd think that a space security agent would know things like that.
Exactly. It's a bit of a plot hole, but we can forgive it. And but then his sister and colleague Kingdom comes in. Sarah, just the person we need. Drop your weapon. And again, if only it had been live action, so we could have seen his face change from hope to one of despair. You too, reaching for his gun, and then shot down. Stephen and the Doctor running down the corridor towards the teleportation room. I'm not sure what they called it in the series, but in the serial, but it was a teleportation room, basically. Where's Brett? He must
Transmat, I think, is the term they use.
Oh, they used transmat in the Troughton era, but they used a different term in this episode. But yes, not just the Doctor and Stephen running towards the room, not knowing that Brett is dead. Oh, he must still be dealing with that girl. Yes, and then Sarah becomes the next short-lived companion. You know, if you depending on how you categorize or classify a companion, 3 dead in a single serial. Okay, it's 12 episodes long, but for the love of the great holy donkey, they are really laying it on with a trowel here. Yes, when you are fighting for the survival of the solar system, if not the entire universe, you know, trying to avoid a Dalek invasion, people die. And also, it briefly mentioned in the last segment the death of Marvick Chen, the fact that he was a megalomaniacal psychopath convinced that he could control the Daleks, that he was to be the ruler of the universe, and the Daleks just kill him like vermin and leave him to rot. Even in the recon, the scene where they're going after the Doctor and Sarah, well, they're carrying the Time Destructor, they just roll past Marvick Chen, because to the Daleks it's just organic waste. It is an obstacle in the way. That is the way that they treat living humans and dead humans. And finally, the death of Sarah Kingdom. The Doctor specifically told Sarah and Stephen to go back to the TARDIS knowing that they would be safe. The TARDIS exists outside of space and time, therefore a time-based weapon cannot hurt you in there. I'm a Gallifreyan, although the word Gallifreyan doesn't exist. I'm a Time Lord. I can survive the effects of this weapon. You can't. But trying to be the hero and still distraught, suicidal over her brother's death, looking for a way to atone. Sarah runs back to help the Doctor, only to get herself killed in, again, the most needless way. If she had gone into the TARDIS with Stephen, she would have been safe, but no, she was reduced to dust before Stephen could reverse the Time Destructor and send everything backwards. Again, to call it a meaningless death is wrong, because it was her attempt to atone. But yes, I remember, I said before that this is the one serial out of the entire Hartnell era that I would show to someone who had never seen classic Doctor Who before, as an example of the greatness of it. And yes, at the end, when they're standing on a desert planet, everything dead, everything destroyed, their new friends dead as well, we won. Stephen listing the death toll. Such a waste. Such a terrible waste. And then they walk back into the TARDIS. What were you saying about this? What was I saying before about this being a Ujames type serial?
And while Coqui, you predicted Katerina's death, were your companion senses tingling over Brett Ryan? Were they tingling over Sarah Kingdom?
I did not expect anywhere near as much death as I saw. I'm still kind of processing it, actually.
Yeah, it's quite something. I'm going to throw in a bit of trivia because I said that I would always point out the reuse of actors when noticed. Obviously, Sarah Kingdom is played by the fabulous Jean Marsh, and not her first appearance in Doctor Who, and not her last appearance in Doctor Who. And you may remember she was Richard the Lionheart's sister Joanna, who was supposed to be forced to marry Saffordin. So not that long, Ian, and they've... and of course the reuse of an actor is also referenced in the Christmas episode, because the guy who comes into the police station was the market trader from the Crusade. Also, they're both two actors from the Crusade. And Nick Courtney, who played Brett Ryan, this is his first Doctor Who appearance, but you might know the face. You've definitely heard of the Brigadier. So yes, that is the actor who will play the Brigadier, but we haven't quite got...
Brett Ryan is Alistair Lethbridge Stewart's great to the power of 10 grandson.
That's interesting how you bring that up, because they recently wanted to set this story in like the year 4 million AD or something.
Yes, a million AD, but they brought it down to 4000 AD to make it more relatable, to make it more sane. If you're going that far into the future, it's just absurd, really.
Yeah. Okay, well, do we have any more to say on the subject of death in this serial, Coqui, or shall we move on to the next segment?
No, just thinking about the negative image, especially when the Doctor is just sort of like flipping out and that's doing negative. But that's not death. But yes, that's fire apparently.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the radiation of the Daleks' weapon. Which, again, we talk about with the death of the main characters in the storyline, but there's so much superfluous death. Let us take a moment to remember all of the giant invisible aliens.
Yes. Yes, that's a point. The first invisible characters in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
The moment when Kingdom is unconscious.
I was thinking about
her arm and flop. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry?
A bunch of Egyptians died too, didn't they? They were going at the Daleks.
Yeah.
Yes, it took.
Yes, and they were like, fire comes out of the weapon. But yeah, that's actually because it was quite a handful that the Daleks took down. That's actually kind of
Yeah, so they were saying that they would need an army to defeat them, which is absolutely true. And of course, they couldn't get an army onto the set. But yes, they did cut down several dozen Egyptians. I feel really bad for making such a tasteless joke when, yes, so many humans did die.
Yeah, and note that the people without the spear were able to lift the Daleks over their head and throw them around. So the Daleks' power levels are pretty inconsistent, aren't they?
Yeah.
I guess they're getting progressively stronger, regardless of where they are in their history.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a thought just then, and I'm brain farting. A neat segue into the next topic is talking of firsts. Isn't Mavic Chen like the first single major supervillain that we've had? And I'm trying to think, because I do think that the reason he's called Mavic Chen is and that he's made to look, because that is a Caucasian actor with makeup, with eye makeup, and what have you. You know, he is meant to be Oriental. Obviously this was 1965. The reference is Ming the Merciless. And actually, in the Flash Gordon movie, Max von Sydow, a German actor, played Ming the Merciless. Because it was okay in those. Actually, it's not the last time. It's not the last time that Doctor Who goes for an Oriental villain. It's all.
Is there a Mark Gatiss jar?
And that's a long way off.
I know. I did actually point out in my video discussing old classic versus new Doctor Who. You know, you're not allowed to stereotype or vilify any demographic except for the Chinese, because apparently that's traditional.
Yes, that seems to. Yeah, it's not even the last time that we see a Caucasian actor with eye makeup to play an East Asian.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's one thing to have an Asian villain. It's another thing to have this sort of conniving, cunning, backbiting kind of thing, which is a bit more of, I don't know why Asians are associated with treachery. Maybe I'm thinking particularly U.S. propaganda of the Japanese, you know, having just come out of nowhere, but isn't that the particular stereotype, that they're treacherous Asians?
Before that as well, there was the Fu Manchu stereotype of the Chinese opium trade.
Yeah.
Shortly after we took control of Hong Kong, the opium trade was booming in London, but of course, no, that's a bad drug. Tobacco. Tobacco and alcohol, those are good drugs, but this being brought to us by evil Asians and Chinese, and as an attempt to destroy our empire. It's the same dance, just a different tune.
I was thinking about the whatchamacallit, they call it the happy merchant. You got the Hasidic Jew rubbing his hands together. I guess the Asian stereotype is pretty similar.
Exactly.
It all goes, from a British point of view, it's the whole, as James said, it's a Victorian thing. It's opium, it's triad gangs, but also don't forget the Cold War, and that they're they're still a communist country.
Technically, but no, they've had so many capitalist reforms now. It's still a single-party system. It is still the Communist Party in control, but it's about as communist as McDonald's.
And certainly the Chinese being filthy evil communists does come up in 72, where we haven't seen the end of the defamation of East Asians in this show.
Oh, as I say, it's traditional.
Now we go over to a new topic, which is that suddenly Doctor Who is kind of political, and you've got Daleks doing politics and being sneaky and devious and having alliances or pretending to have alliances, and a thought does occur that this could actually have been boring. This could have been like a Star Wars Episode 1 kind of, and then there was an international trade agreement, blah 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 kind of, this isn't what I tuned in for kind of feeling. But actually, I thought it all worked out rather well, and Daleks being political and rather than the full-on, you are inferior, you must be destroyed. And I suppose it's been 4,000 years since they occupied Earth, so humans are forgiven and forgotten. But yeah, what you see of I think they call it the console, is rather good. Though the rhythmic kind of banging on the desk seems a bit primitive for the year 4000 and these advanced civilizations.
Actually, there is a reason for that, as far as I can see. That the banging on the desk on the table, on the conference table, really, to signal agreement, that does occur a lot. I think it does go back to the German beer halls where Hitler began his political career. Back then, the political parties, like the German Workers' Party, which became the Nazi Party, they began by having their meetings in beer halls, where after a speech, if you agreed, if you were cheering, applauding, you would bang your mug, your empty mug, on the table. And also there was a reference to this in the mini-series Nuremberg with Alec Baldwin as the American prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials, and Brian Cox playing Goering. Goering stands up in the mess hall with the other German prisoners, high-ranking German prisoners, and makes this grand speech about how the Allies would give us anything, offer us anything to hear us say that we were wrong, but I will never surrender. Am I alone? Am I all that's left? And because they finished eating, they all have their tin mugs and they all bang them on the table as well in agreement. So, yes, just like the Nazi occupation of Earth. Oh, sorry, did we mention the Nazis were now Daleks? Yes. Terry Nation, the war's been over for 20 years. You can let it go now.
Yes, okay, so it's yet another, learn something new every day. So, yes, Doctor Who, Daleks and Nazis once again.
It's the meeting of the Axis powers.
Yeah.
Germany, Italy, and Japan. That's
banging in agreement, except I suppose a Dalek could bang with its plunger. But yes, plunger banging, if you agree. Yes, so, interesting stuff. Coqui, your thoughts?
Yeah, the whole political thing, and that's it. They're just a tool. They are smart enough to work politics just so that they can destroy better. And of course, they weren't going to keep any of their promises. Of course, they weren't going to draw up borders. They were just, they needed that. The thing is, the mineral is called terranium, so you would think it's from Earth, but it's actually from Uranus. And apparently Uranus is the only planet in the universe that has this mineral. And even I think it's weird for the Guardian of the Solar System to call it the rarest, because there are some minerals in the universe that are not even stable enough to stay together for more than a second. So I'm not sure if that tube can be called the rarest mineral in the universe, but either way, the fact that it only happen on Uranus makes it incredibly rare. But, the whole political aspect, I thought it, like I said, I really liked the whole, I like it when there's dissent among the bad guys, like someone's trying to get ahead. I mean, ideally, I'd love to see that happen among good guys as well, but like I said, the good guys are the main characters. They're good and pure, and you have to keep liking them for the next episode and the next episode. So, it's still good to see it in bad guys, though. The idea that there's... And now I'm thinking about the monk, who, I suppose he's the closest thing to one of the quote-unquote good guys doing it, that he's going for the bad guys, and then he's like, oh, I did it to save our lives. What do you mean you don't believe me? Don't you think I'm trustworthy? Oh, yeah, he's proven completely trustworthy.
It's a bit odd that the monk's even in this story, and of course the obvious thing is, why is he even still wearing a monk's vestments? I've heard people say, does he not have other clothes? Are they just that comfortable? And the whole kind of, He's a bit thrown into the story. I think with Mavic Chen, though, I think he's the first villain, the first character in Doctor Who, and I don't think he's the last, to think, a human who thinks that they'll be able to trust villains such as the Daleks, that he's not expendable, which, yes, it sets a good precedent for a type of character that I think we see again, but isn't actually overused. I don't think they become a trope. But how could you think that you can have an alliance with the Daleks?
Oh, the last 50 evil, stupid villains who thought they could, their problem was that they weren't evil and stupid enough.
Aha. But yeah, I mean, part of what's great about this is the over-the-topness. I think Mavic Chen even has the line, "Nothing in the universe can stop me now."
Oh yes, when he's making that grand speech with his arms spread wide and his seconds just standing in the corner. Jesus Christ, I'm working for another.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have anything else to add on that subject?
I was just thinking about the bug some more. Now that you mentioned, why is he still wearing that garb?
I do like the way that the Galactic Council, even throughout the serial, although it was a bit part in the New Year's Day episode, Volcano, they're talking about who will be at the Daleks' right hand. And I think it's the leader of the 10th galaxy, the guy who has kind of spines growing out of his face.
Yeah.
So, Trachis, I think his name was. Surely the 10th galaxy is the largest of the outer galaxies. Surely Trachis will be at the Daleks' right hand. The Daleks don't like Trachis. He's already asking for too much power. But I have a plan that will help them to dispose of him. Fingernail gently grooming the mustache. Such a perfect little gesture. Yes, so trying, when Brett Vi and Stephen and the Doctor have made it to Earth with the Terranium, making it look as if making it seem as if the agents who stole the Terranium were from the 10th galaxy. That is a lie, etc. And then we're in the 8th episode trying to use testing the time destructor on Trachis. They're trying to kill him with the reptilian guy and Mavic Chen as the observers. Oh, so that's what the time destructor is supposed to do, cause a kind of panicked insanity. Well, I always thought that Trachis was a bit unstable anyway. But no, it turns out that it doesn't work because it's the fake Terranium with which the Doctor made, that Stephen made using the G-force again. There's so much in the serial. So much to discuss.
Okay, I just realised that of our topics, I skipped Kingdom and the portrayal of women.
Yes.
I have to say, I would think, the thing that's striking is, of course, you hear the description of Kingdom as the most ruthless space security agent, ruthless, obedient,
always does precisely as ordered, and then they come in, and to which, it's a woman!
There's actually, this 1965, revealing that such a character would be a woman, warranted a musical sting.
Yeah.
Which is better than a Dum Dum Dum. It's like the sting in the soundtrack at that point. So while I personally think that Sarah Kingdom does still revert into role of insert female companion in some of the second half, you can forget that she's the most ruthless space security agent in the universe. Sometimes. Coqui, your thoughts on Sarah Kingdom specifically as, a ruthless, strong, powerful woman?
I hadn't even thought of her that much, but yeah, it is. Compared to the other woman in Who thus far, this is actually a huge ahead. See, I also remember that whole bit about her. She's from a further in the future than Steven, so being more technologically savvy. And Steven's like, I may not be as smart as you as a doctor, but please I can manage. Which, it's an interesting line for a man to say to a woman, at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole guilt for killing the brother thing. You're right. That is a noteworthy portrayal. I mean, it's by no means a perfect one, but the whole self-sacrifice thing at the end too. It's certainly very unique when it comes to women in fiction at the time.
Yeah. You, James?
In a way, I I believe that Sarah Kingdom's story arc was similar to a incredibly time compressed version of Aaron Sun's story arc from Farscape. Starts off as Captain Bylar Crace describes them both in Farscape. She is a mindless thug, an assassin, just as you and I once were. Obeys orders without question, etc., etc. But then, after killing her brother, she begins to question herself. She begins to question this principle of absolute obedience to which she's adhered her entire life. No, Marvick Chen is a traitor. No, these people who I thought were traitors are the heroes. No, I killed my brother for nothing. And so she is going through a psychological metamorphosis, a revelation. She is becoming a good person, and yes, it's an incredibly compressed character arc, but it was still the best way to go about it. I sometimes think, what if Sarah had survived and been the new companion? But again, it would have been interesting to explore that character arc further. As I say, just like Aaron Sun in Farscape, her instincts, her training teach her to kill without remorse, etc., but slowly coming to terms with her humanity. However, I do believe, although it was ultimately futile, as Coqui said, her death was very well done. And, a year later, as I keep pointing out, the female crew and officers on the Starship Enterprise will be there to answer the phone and make coffee. and do the paperwork for the male officers.
Something is interesting in a time travel show. They go, well, it was obviously Christmas where we just were. So, because we don't work to an annual calendar because we're time travelers, and that would only be the Earth's calendar anyway. So it's all meaningless in the TARDIS. So you never see a Christmas tree in the TARDIS. It's completely meaningless. But it was Christmas where we just were. So let's crack open a bottle of sherry and have a brief celebration before we get back to the adventure and the peril and saving the universe. Coqui, you seems not to actually mind those middle two episodes that much.
Yeah, I guess part of it is just the way you were pitching them and how, thrown out of the loop I would allegedly be. But, they left, and it kind of made sense to me that they would be fleeing with the Terranium, and, yeah, I guess I wasn't super keen on the police story, but I don't know, it just, I guess also I felt like I wanted that little break, but again, that's probably because I was watching them all at once. So it was just a nice little breather for me, I guess. And the New Year's thing, it did advance the story. The pursuit goes on. They throw in on the time meddler. He uses the term time travelers to refer to themselves, which I find really interesting because, anyone could be a time traveler. But we're assuming that, they share the same species. I don't know. Could the time meddler be human? I guess that's sort of
no.
left up in the air.
It was made perfectly clear in what was the name?
The time it.
It was his name after him. I was thinking, was it the invasion? Was it the Saxons? But no, it was the Time Meddler. He made it perfectly clear that yes, they are from the same planet. That his TARDIS is simply he is from the future of Gallifrey. It's just that they haven't come up with the name yet. They haven't come up with the species.
Oh yeah, he said Mark too. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking there could be like different species and stuff on, but yeah, I suppose if it's a new model, never mind.
Yeah. It's interesting because the Daleks refer to the Doctor and Co as time travelers, even though, like in the Chase, these Daleks are also time travelers.
Again, they just hadn't thought of a collective term yet.
Well, so in the Chase, they refer to all the TARDIS occupants as the humans, but maybe those Daleks just didn't. They knew who the Doctor was to a point, but didn't know he was. Yeah. But look, there's going to be continuity stuff. In the same season that the Doctor referred to having built the TARDIS, we meet the monk who has the next model TARDIS. Whoops. Same season that you made that gap. But yeah. So yeah, I guess you're right, Coqui, that it's a bit of a diversion, but they do get back to the story. And actually, the breaking of the fourth wall, it's not the only time they do it. Although I always think it's best when villains break the fourth wall. We've got more of that to come. Yeah. So, James, you despise these episodes with a passion.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think the first time I saw them, like Coqui, they weren't too bad. It was it's just a bit of fun. But watching them with you, Alex, for the second time, watching them for the third time in total, having watched them with you twice, the words, it begins to grate a little. Do not begin to describe it, because, yes, it's just a bit of fun. It's a bit of a diversion. But when you have seen it that many times, it ceases to be funny. It ceases to be a distraction. It is just a massive annoyance. But as we discussed, as we were watching it together last night or the night before, one thing that did occur to us, the fact that, yes, they landed in the New Year's Day episode, they landed in Trafalgar Square, December 31st, 1965, beginning of 1966. Wouldn't it have been so cool? Wouldn't it have been the greatest cameo in history if just after the Doctor had taken off, we saw Ian and Barbara in the crowd? Ian stops, looks. Barbara, did you see that? See what? There was a telephone box over. There was a police phone box over there, and it just disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, your mind's playing tricks on you. Yeah, it is a bit. It is coming back to me. Yeah, let's get back to the party.
Yeah, if only they could have got the actors, that would have made that episode.
But again, it was just literally thrown together at the last minute with spit and bacon grease.
The actors were probably busy. And to be honest, I mean, I probably wanted to put Doctor Who behind them, because when you've done 2 years of a show, you don't want to get typecast. They probably left on their agent's advice, But I mean, the annoying thing is, of course, that Vicky did say something like, well, if we ever go back to 1960s England, and actually, the Hartnell era they do a couple of times, or the Doctor does a couple of times.
Oh, you did actually point out they do seem to be going back to London and England in the 1960s rather a lot now that Ian and Barbara have left.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yes, he couldn't pull that off before, but now it's all. I just remembered something.
So can I just say, could it be that the TARDIS is basically trolling the Doctor? Sorry, carry on, Cokie.
I was going to say something, but no, I was just going to reference the whole anthropomorphized TARDIS that the Doctor's like, you never told me where you never took me where I wanted, but she's like, I always took you where you needed to go. Was that even Moffat, or was that still in Russell T era?
That was Moffat's era, but it was Neil Gaiman who wrote the episode.
Oh, okay. But in any case, it occurred to me. They seem to be landing on the 1960s quite a bit. But something I just remembered, and I think it's the episode after the New Year's one, so it's kind of off topic. But the whole thing is like, so you're a time traveler too. And then there's him. It could be a coincidence, but what are the odds of such a coincidence? It's like, well, it happened before, with this the meddling monk episode or whatever. But
still, but the point there is the Doctor's TARDIS, the meddling monk's TARDIS, and the Daleks' TARDIS all being in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, come to think of it, right, the Doctor messes with the monk's directional circuit. Why doesn't he steal it and put it in his own TARDIS?
No, he did, remember?
Okay.
That's how they got back to Kemble. I was thinking, this is the first time where they are ever... this is the first occasion when they are ever going back to...
Oh, and it only works once.
Exactly.
Yes, I was quite tired. I'm always quite tired by the time you get to the end, so pardon me, people, brain fart.
Yeah, but what you're saying is, yes, the Doctor messed with his chameleon circuits, the Time Meddler's chameleon circuits, to make it look like the police box, stole his directional circuit, but of course it's from a Mark IV. Either it'll work and it'll burn out itself, or the entire central column will burn out. Yeah, they've got to get back to Kemble to save the solar system and the universe. So, and again, it could have been a massive continuity hole. You've never been able to get back to the same time and place, visit the same time and place twice, but now you can. But yes, that is enough of a reason for the meddling monk to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. And also Egypt. I liked Egypt. It wasn't like a historical because, one, they didn't spend much time there, and two, there were Daleks in Egypt. Daleks in ancient Egypt seems like something they could have tried on its own right. But yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's I think an ancient civilization they'd not done yet. And I'm thinking actually how interesting it would have been if Doctor Who had stopped being a random time and space travel show and actually had, we're going to have the Doctor purposely land places from now on, but which is more like New Who. He does make mistakes in New Who. I'm not quite sure in Classic Who. Don't spoil it, James. I'm not quite sure in Classic Who when he does become more directional. What's the word? More purposeful in his travels. But are we ready for final thoughts and goodbyes?
I just want to mention about it's not just the Christmas and New Year's episode. Basically, the entire all 6 episodes written by Dennis Spooner come under the category of filler. The fact that if you although the Doctor disguising himself as one of the delegates by nicking his cloak and going into the Galactic Council meeting when Marvick Chen presents the Turanian to the Daleks. that is one of the greatest scenes, as Brett Byrne points out. You're a brave man, Doctor. You're going into you are almost literally going into the hornet's nest, and the hornets are all genocidal killers. It's
Yeah.
It is one of the coolest scenes. The security alert goes off when the unconscious delegate hits the alarm. All of the other delegates and the Daleks leave, and the Doctor just grabs the terranium and legs it. All of that from the Christmas episode, the New Year's episode, all of the stuff in Ancient Egypt with the Time Meddler is all written in by Dennis Spooner. Trying to stretch it out to 12 episodes.
Yeah.
But that all could have been done away with, and we could have just stuck with Terry Nation's 6 episodes. However, it is a testament to Dennis Spooner as a writer himself, although at that point the only other time traveller in that universe was the Time Meddler. We could have maybe done without his comedy appearance. But again, as Coqui pointed out, it was still very nicely done. The whole, would I betray you? Oh, here you are, my Dalek friends. here, kill them and let me go.
Yes, I suppose if the Master had been invented, it might have been a Master cameo.
Exactly. It's just they had to go with what they had. They couldn't create and introduce an entire new character. But
and then they probably we've still got Peter Butterworth's number. Is he available?
Exactly. Once again, it is a testament to the fact that although this serial was thrown together with spit and bacon wire, it is still the greatest of the most profound, in my opinion, the greatest of the Hartnell era, and one of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time.
And on that note, I think it's time for final thoughts and goodbyes. And I'd just like to wish a Merry Christmas to all of you at home. And that's going to confuse people as it's September, but I'll get the reference. And so, CoquiPirate, your final thought and goodbye.
Watch it.
Mm-hmm.
The hamster briefly visiting ancient Egypt be upon your head.
In fact, not only do I think that's the actually, this is a bit of a spoiler, but we haven't seen. Well, we're going to have mummies in this season. But no, I don't think we ever go back to Egypt. I think this was the only time we've seen the Doctor in the canonical TV series. I think it's the only time we've seen the Doctor go to Africa at all. I am counting Egypt as North Africa. So yes, I think it's his only journey to that continent ever. But that's its own thing. So James, your final thought and goodbye.
Yes, although it is a marathon and so much of it is lost and has had to be reconstructed, Mission to the Unknown, the Mythmakers, and the Daleks Master Plan is definitely, without a doubt, worth your time. As I say, this is the serial that I've shared with Teresa, starting with Mission to the Unknown and just going through in chronological order, and just her, just at the end, after such a waste, such a terrible waste, and let's go. Is that it? Yeah, that's the end.
Perhaps it's what we should call the Recon trilogy.
Indeed, it is. In spite of, as I've now said repeatedly throughout this podcast, in spite of the massive production problems, in spite of the massive rewrites, pressure from the Director General, etc., problems with scheduling, Galaxy 4 shouldn't have existed, it should have been Vicky rather than Katarina, it is still the greatest serial in the William Hartnell era, and may the great holy donkey bless anyone's attempt to find the full live-action version of this serial, The Mythmakers and Mission to the Unknown. The Great Holy Donkey will bless your house for 7,000 generations.
Yes, here's hoping indeed. And tips for anyone who thinks it'll be an arduous task. Some people, like when the YouTube show Doing Doctor Who got to Dalek Master Plan, they actually did it in 2 sittings and 2 weekly episodes. When Daleks Master Plan was novelised, they actually did it as 2 books. So you literally read part 1, then you read part 2. So yes, this ran to 2 paperbacks. That's the scale of this. But yeah, you might have to. You don't have to marathon everything, but even if you watch like 1 episode a day. But as with the Mythmakers, I will be linking Daleks Master Plan, the recon job, in the description.
I would recommend linking Mission to the Unknown and the Mythmakers as well, just for those people who do want the full continuity.
Absolutely, and I'll be linking the animated Mission to the Unknown. It's odd because I've seen pictures of Dalek Master Plan characters animated the same way, but maybe the animation just isn't complete. There is at least one animated version of Dalek Master Plan, but the animation isn't that quality.
Oh yes, doing a single episode versus doing a 12-part serial. 10 parts if they... No, I think for completistness, they do have to include Feast of Stephen. Oh, God. So, you're the new bloke from G Division, are you? Yes, sorry, I mean I.
Oh, yes, Stephen feeling the need he had to fake the Yorkshire accent.
Yeah.
Okay, because police officers from one region never get given positions in new areas.
Well, if I want to be the kind of no, that makes sense fanboy, he has no idea what era they're in. There's no idea of that this is the police force, etc. He is doing his best to infiltrate it. So he does think that maybe I have to fake the accent in order to pass for a local.
It's just quite strange that for a man from hundreds of years in our future, when looking through the TARDIS wardrobes for new clothes every week, he always goes for clothes that look 60s.
You'd almost think, no, I can't say that. It'll spoil the illusion for the children.
So, well then, okay, and we have another historical next week, one that I certainly know James is a big fan of already, and I hope the CoquiPirate likes as well. So without further ado, next episode, The Massacre.